Hi everybody, it's Here with the Birds, back with another Shadowlands video. And in this video I'd like to walk you through portions of a Sanguine Depths 10 that I did in a pug group. Now this pug group had some struggles in specifically the back end of this dungeon, so I'm going to limit some of my commentary to the main pieces, which include some of the Pridefuls and the bosses, and just talk through some of the mistakes I'm making, some of the concerns I have for the group overall, and what you can expect from pugs. The main takeaway for me, and the reason I wanted to bring this specific video to you, is to talk a little bit about aggressive tanks. So an aggressive tank is a person who in a pug group wants to overpull or pull a bunch of stuff while your teammates are far behind, and we had a number of cases of that in this dungeon. Now in general, I sort of prefer an aggressive tank when I can get one in my guild groups and there's lots of communication, because it's more fun, it makes the dungeon go quicker usually, and generally speaking, if people are performing okay and interrupting, it's fine. Spiteful introduces a kind of unfortunate counter to a lot of those aggressive tendencies, because in addition to the details of a given fight, you also have to contend with the fact that your entire pull might get disrupted by many instances of the Spiteful ad, which is going to cause you to run away, cause you to move out of position, and as you can see here, I'm just trying to get myself back to a good position out of the way of these stupid guys who cleave and not get run over by traps at ranged. So just be aware, guys, in pugs, that you're sometimes going to run across tanks like I did here, who are probably good players in general, but are, due to the lack of communication, probably going to provide a difficult time for you as a healer. You're going to have to be on your toes, especially with your bops, especially with all of your utility. Now, I hope this guy is doing well, and I apologize for the mistakes on my side. You'll see when we turn to the first boss that I perform my own mistakes a number of times. So just beware. Don't think of your pug groups as a place to just flame people. There's lots you can learn from them. So that's what I wanted to bring this to your attention to. There's at least 4 or 5 major pieces that I wanted to improve on, and so that's why I'm reviewing this video in particular. But it does have a very different feel to the groups that we do as a guild, where it's very smooth, generally speaking. You time these keys, usually with no hassles, no one's sweating. Even if the pulls are big, and usually you actually don't want big pulls in Spiteful, but even if the pulls are large, there's enough communication to make it work. Let's head over to the first Prideful and boss, and we'll just talk a little bit about it. So here we're killing the last of the shades off, and we get these ticks, which are kind of nasty if you chain pull them together because they burst. So just be aware of that. And as we move into this Prideful, I'm thinking to myself, we have the boss and we have this Prideful to deal with. Which CDs am I going to use in each of these instances? Are we able, with the Holy Light build that I have here, to punch through the healing required? And we'll see later with one of the Pridefuls that in general the answer is yes, that all things being equal, if we didn't have these ticks running around smacking people and people could focus damage, we wouldn't really need to use any of our CDs to deal with this stuff. I decided to use Hallow here, just because I want the insurance. There's a tick out, there'll be another Spiteful ad probably coming out. We may jump forward, and this guy's being sort of aggressive as a tank, so I'm anticipating needing to have my CDs ready to go for this fight, and he's likely going to pull these guys into the boss given that we have Prideful. So these are things that I'm thinking about in terms of my own CDs. We could also have used Holy Avenger here in place of Divine Purpose. I think it's actually really, really useful. I tend to not need it for our guild groups, and I've been trying to get away with it in our pug groups, but it's pretty clear to me, the more I do of this stuff, that Holy Avenger is going to be a useful tool for a lot of your pug groups, because people make more mistakes in general. It's nice to have that other tool for Venthyr, because we don't have access to Divine Toll. It's just a good ability overall to cover your mistakes, and it works fairly well with Virtue. When you press Virtue, you can just reliably build Holy Power with a flash of light if you're not in melee, or you can do it with a Crusader Strike on top of your Holy Shock. So moving back and forth between those two, it pumps out quite a lot of throughput. So here in this boss, we're kind of behind, so I'm trying to catch up, and you'll notice something that's unfortunate. My positioning is very bad on this fight. I should be on the far side of the wall, because as you'll see later, I get knocked off. In general, though, there's a couple of things that I could have improved on aside from just the specific positioning. One of them is responding to these smashes a little bit better. So you can see there I was trying to channel a Holy Light. I needed to just wait until that was over before I did that. I press my own personal defensive here because I'm going to grab these orbs, but I'm not topped enough to do it. And so when I get to them, I just die. And the response should have been to probably lock rock and use a potion, just so that we were okay. And as a result, my warlock dies. I mean, the boss is going to die, but it was an unfortunate choice there. You can see here at the end, I'm just doing the wrong thing here by standing too far to the left on that ledge. So that's a great example of a couple of places where I can improve, but overall the group did fairly well, and those were largely my mistakes on that first boss. Let's move over to boss number 2. So this is an interesting boss, really difficult in general for the Glimmer of Light build, because Torvold's positioning in this hallway makes it hard to be in melee, especially after he drops that pool and you have the ad to deal with. So what we're trying to do here is get a good rhythm of going side to side across the room, and you'll see I make a number of mistakes on that front. And then we're also trying to account for castigate. So I decide to hallow fairly early on here after the first pool goes down, so I know where we're going to be standing largely. Here you can see me trying to recover. So Beacon of Virtue doing a lot of work at ranged. Now we have to get across the pool. We're still within hallow. And I decide now to use wings just to catch up a little bit. And of course I am completely out of rhythm. I'm moving right when I should move left. I'm moving left when I should move right. That's okay. Even if you're making these kinds of mistakes on a 10, you can still kind of get away with things. We devo here just to catch up a little bit, and then it basically bridges the gap for our virtue. That guy should have not stood in bad, but it's also our fault. We could have probably helped him by focusing him a little bit. Bestow Faith from Virtue is going to help pick these guys up. In just a moment, we flash heal a bit to grab them. Notice, guys, the difference between the AoE healing throughput just with this build, a Holy Light build, and you don't have any CDs left. Really, really quite strong. Obviously, I'm making some mistakes, but we're putting out 5.2k HPS just flat, and that's with Hallow at the beginning, with Wings halfway through. It's a really tough fight, and I was already screwing it up. Just be aware that you're likely to have similar problems with Glimmer, and you're probably going to struggle in lower eye levels to get out the throughput you need while still hitting the boss. This third boss is an example in my mind of, again, this tank's mentality, and though I haven't shown you all of the pieces of what he was doing, his attitude is, if we wipe a little bit, we need to push harder. We still have time, we can make the timer. So what he starts to do here in a minute is actually just pull mobs into the boss. And while in general I think that's okay, and I actually appreciate his desire to do this, one of the weird things for PUGs is having to deal with Spiteful, another mechanic, while the boss is ongoing. And we kind of get a big pull here to get these oppressors going. Lots of ads are going to spawn off of this. The dot's going to do a lot of damage, so we're just trying to recover a little bit. And you can see here that the attitude is not to help your friends so much. A Spiteful ad goes after our Balanced Druid in a second and just starts pummeling him. And he's trying to get away, but really he's the only one hitting it for a while here. All the melee are focused on the oppressors. These are signs that your group is going to struggle in general, because if their mindset is just pummel the boss, we just have to kill it, go, 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 you'll have these shades be a serious problem. It's going to move you out of the position you want to be. It's going to make you forget mechanics. Luckily, it's not too much of a problem, and you can see here we can just throw Virtue down to help sort things out. Again, guys, notice just Virtue's power for something like Grievous. Everybody has Grievous right now, and Virtue is going to help us top everybody in a few seconds here. There go the Grievous stacks. Glimmer of Light on this boss is okay, but you're going to have these portions when we start to get the swirls that we have to dodge, and that's actually very difficult to contend with when you can't be in melee. So we drop a Hallow now just because we're going to be moving, so this will hit most of the melee. And then we just use Virtue on the back end to help stabilize everybody. Again, if you're Glimmer, how do you really deal with the problem of being away from the boss? Grievous is going to eat into people. Just be aware, guys. You may have to use some different tools. This would have been another good fight for Holy Avenger if we had it, because you can pair that together after each swirl with just reconnecting with the boss, either with your Crusader Strikes or otherwise. Let's head over to the final little piece where we have our Prideful into the final boss, and I'll just wrap it up. We do okay in this hallway, but the one that follows, the tank doesn't really use the shield on call, and there's a lot of just messiness of trying to heal through things that are unhealable. Again, it's okay. You're going to get this in some pub groups. Just be aware of it and try to do your best. So this guy's worried that I think the tank's going to die. So we open here, just focusing on our tank, and the trap goes out. I think we're standing on the trap. I'm not totally sure, but the Spiteful adds are the big deal for this hallway because we don't kite them backwards. You can see I make that mistake coming up in a second. It's on me. I get 2 auto attacks. In a higher level, this would have killed me, I think. I think I've been killed by this before, just almost 1 shot or 2 shot. And we get Prideful that's behind us. Sorry for the camera here, but I'm just focused here on making sure our group's okay. No, guys, we haven't used any major CDs. We're just dealing with Prideful straight up with our Holy Light build and Divine Purpose and Awakening. Flash of Lights are useful for building Holy Power during this portion when people are dropping a little bit low and you don't really have time to throw a Holy Light in. Yeah, just clean, pretty clean. I found that mostly the Prideful stuff has been not a problem at all for the Holy Light build, guys. Beacon of Faith is good too, but any combination of Virtue and Bestow Faith alongside the Holy Light build with Inflorescence has just been really, really strong, despite perhaps some of the tendencies of these tanks to overpull. Here we get our Hallow into this fight, and that's kind of the benefit that I think Venthyr brings to dungeons specifically, is quite a lot of damage if you want it. This fight here doesn't usually present too much of a problem for groups, and all you have to do is essentially dodge the mechanics. You will have to have some eye for people screwing things up, but overall you can see it's not that big of a deal. You could spend more time damaging, and I think Glimmer would really shine in this sort of a fight because you can be on the boss most of the time. There's no Spiteful ads that are going to come out and whack you. In general, though, guys, just be aware that sometimes you're going to have tanks who overpull, who are very aggressive. Stick with it. Some of it will be your fault, like myself on the first boss especially. Some of it will be completely out of your control. Virtue as a tool and the Holy Light build in general are completely competent to do this material, even in a pub group like this. So just stay with it, guys. And hope you enjoyed it. If you have comments or questions, let me know in the chat. We'll see you again next time.